Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our our episode of History Makers or Makers of History. And today we are happy to host one of the favorite gospel artists, a man with many hats, a bishop, a pastor, and all the names in his heart. He'll tell us. Brother Pete Odera. How are you, bro?
I'm good.
Yes.
I like that you said Brother Pete Odera.
Yes.
I'm not a bishop. Let's just get that, because I've never been consecrated.
Yes.
So let's get that one straight, so that somebody doesn't start calling me that.
Yes.
I know it's a title that many people like throwing around. But my day job, I'm a pastor.
Yes.
So we marry people. Unfortunately, you have to do funerals as well. So that's my day job. I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
But I'm also a mentor. So I'm in ministry, I'm a mentor. I mentor people. So I've, over the years, done a mentorship program for various young people who are in various industries, not just in the music, or in ministry. Some are in the legal field, some are in business, and so on. And then what people know me most for is my music. I'm a musician, I'm a music producer, and my music has taken me literally almost all over the world. Traveled, been on many platforms, tens, hundreds of thousands of people in the last 30 plus years. And then the last hat that I wore, which I'd been doing on and off, but now I do regularly, is I'm in the media. I host a radio show called Good Morning Africa, which we broadcast out of our station in San Diego, California. And I highlight the very best in the emerging sound of urban Africa.
Urban Africa.
So this is what I'm doing now. So those are then number 5 is I'm a husband, then a father. My wife of close to 24, it'll be 24 years this year. And I have 2 daughters who now sing with me. They're all adults. So I'm a happy man. I'm a happy man. Those are the things that I do.
You see, you have very many hats.
There are many hats, including this one.
Hats, including that one, checkered. Welcome, bro. I wanted to ask you also is, in your music career, your long musical career,
right?
The sound has been changing, but I do not see a lot of change in the number of entry in gospel music. The numbers remain restrictedly low as compared to when you started this sound in the 90s, where there was what was sort of a boom. Many guys would join. It was very refreshing. It was something something which was coming up very fast. But I do not see many guys joining. Is it that, and is it lack of facility? Is it that people are too restricted? Actually,
on the contrary, to me, I find that the numbers now, I mean, almost every week, I'm discovering new artists all the time. And this is not just in Kenya. I mean, this is just a global phenomenon, because now we're not just restricted to Nairobi or Kenya. We're a global. This is a global thing that's happening. You know, for example, on my radio show, I've hosted people I'd never heard about. You know, Melody Joyce from Cameroon, Joyce Blessing. We have Diana Hamilton from Ghana. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, I was interviewing Sarah Table from the UK, Patrick Duncan from South Africa. These are our guys. I mean, this African diaspora. In my opinion, actually, we have an overwhelming number of people who now want to get into the gospel music arena. I think partly because the bar was lowered. You know, the entry level 30 years ago was really high. Yes, it was very high. It cost a lot of money. It took a certain amount of skill. There was very little space for maneuvering. We didn't have on any of our main TV stations 30 years ago, only family TV. Actually, there was only one show that came on KTN that was Shake. Yes. It was the only gospel music show on right here on KTN. Yes. So I think in that regard, there was very little space. Every station right now, regardless of the size, has at least one gospel show.
And on Sunday, it is whole half day or sorts.
In fact, if you're not a lover of gospel music, I don't know what you do on Sundays. You can really get... I've seen people complaining now and saying, Toa gospel is too much.
Too much.
In my view, we've had a glut, and with the excess of numbers comes everything from the very best to the absolute repugnant. I look at this and say, what is this? This isn't even music, but somebody's consuming it. So I think, Charles, I want to in a way, I have to disagree with you on that one.
Agreed. But the artists you've mentioned are mostly across Africa.
Right.
Looking inwardly into the Kenyan scene.
Let's talk about Kenya.
Kenyan scene.
I knew you were bringing me here.
I'm bringing you to the Kenyan scene. Apart from Ringtone Apoko, remember the age of Jemima Thiongo?
Yeah.
The age
I hear you.
Mary Wamboi.
Yeah.
These were strictly Afro singers,
yes.
deep in the word,
got you.
Deep in lyricism, deep in realizing and actually taking the word of God out there. Then there's a new generation, which I would not judge, but it is about the beat, it is about what goes on. Yeah. So,
without a doubt.
So, my question is it really, is that space expanding, or is that space expanding with people?
No, to answer you frankly with that one.
Yes.
I think there's several things that are happening.
Yes.
One is that 30 years ago, like I said, you had only KBC, VOK, KBC, and then KTN.
Joy, bring us.
That's all you had. So there's very small, and then there was very few people who had TVs. Radio was more ubiquitous. But then now what happened is around mid-90s, 95, 96, suddenly you had FM stations.
Yes,
proliferation. And then when you had 1, 2 radio stations, now you have one media owner with several radio stations.
Yeah.
And then we now became regional radio stations. So what's happening is, whereas before, a singer in Kisumu had to come to Nairobi to penetrate.
Yeah.
Right now, there are singers who are huge. I mean, I've been to a couple of funerals.
In Kisumu, yes, there are many, yes.
And there's a gospel artist I'd never heard.
Yes.
And everybody knows his music. I said, I've never heard about this guy.
Yes.
Because, you know, Nairobi artists are really just focused. But now you have artists like Ben Gidai, who, if he stops traffic in Rika and in Nyeri, if he shows up, he's going to do a show.
Yes, a showstopper.
It just would not happen. It would not happen before. So I think there's also many channels through which the music is going. So that's one. Now, you asked another question, which is a sub-question of that, is about the quality and the content.
Yes.
I think the quality at some point increased because we had to reach world class and world standard. Right now, I'm not sure that the sonic quality of the music is as much a question as the content.
Yeah.
The content is obviously what is the main issue at hand. Yeah. And I think that's not just a reflection of music. Yeah. And I think I've said this before. The position I hold on that one is that it's a reflection of our society. It's a reflection of our society. The very thing you see in gospel music, you see also in politics.
Yes.
You see rogue politicians with no content, just making noise everywhere, jumping around and creating the kind of... it's a problem with our society. The problem is that our society is so traumatized that these are expressions of the trauma that are coming out. And so what we see in music, the musicians are a reflection. Remember, musicians are artists and they're sort of like prophets.
Yes.
They're prophets, and the griots that we were speaking about in West Africa, that's who our musicians are, whether they're conscious of it or not. So when you have, I remember having this conversation with the late Achieng Abura, whose album I produced as well a while ago, and we'd have these intellectual joustings, and we'd go to record at 10 and we'd start recording at 12 or 1 because between 10 and 12 we were discussing, arguing. We were arguing. We had these conversations, Charles, and one of the things I was I said to her, look, I know that Fundi Konde, I know Daudi Kabaka, I know Fadhili Williams. These were what we call our musicians. They were speaking what in Helule was our song.
Yes.
You know, this was reflecting, it came from our culture.
Yeah.
But culture is never static.
It's
culture
dynamic.
is always dynamic.
Yeah.
And so what we've had is this modernity that has imposed itself on our already fractious culture. And then what happens is this mongrel. This mongrel that you have now.
And that's why we have gospel musicians like Embarambara singing.
You know, the reality is, we live in a very free society. Actually, if you look at across Africa,
yes.
I think Kenya's expression, we are very free. We are there's some things that you would never see
yes.
in some other spaces.
Yes.
You'd never see somebody calling them, behaving like that, say in Ethiopia, for example.
Yes.
We are very advanced, very free, very enlightened country in that regard. And I'd like to pull back a little bit, and rather than go in and criticize, I mean, I certainly do not condone some of the things that we're seeing now.
Jumping on trees and cows.
No, really, yeah. You may call it art, but in a way, it's exactly what I'm saying to you.
Yes.
And I said this before, and the reality is, whether he's conscious of it or not, whether you're talking about Willie Paul, Ringtone, and Barambama, the ones who in recent times have been controversial, they're reflecting what society is. They're reflecting what society is. This is a mirror. We're looking at a mirror. As much as we don't want to accept it, this is a mirror of who we are. This is who we are. These are our people. They didn't come from space. These are our guys. We developed them. Yes. Our society has nurtured like a petri dish. You know, you grow a culture. You know when you're back in the biolab, they said, put something in there. And this is what we have grown. This is what we have become. And so I don't know why we are shocked. I don't know why we're even shocked when we see this is who we are. Unfortunately, this is who we are, and we don't like what we see in the mirror. We don't break the mirror. When we don't like what we see in the mirror, we adjust our time.
But when you're coming up in music industry in the 90s, and what the current generation is doing, yours was pure artistic and purely spiritual.
Right.
And without gamemanship.
Yeah.
But now there's a lot of gamemanship. Yeah. Do you think that the earlier church would have condoned it?
Absolutely not. I mean, the reality is, we weren't doing it for money. Here's the difference. One of the major differences. There was very little money to be made. I know we were chatting a little earlier about this. Yes. I argued with some of the major advertising companies. I remember sitting in the office of the managing director of Pepsi Cola East Africa and arguing with him that give us a chance. There's something here in gospel music. They said, what is that? He had no clue, no clue that there was a groundswell, a following that was a subculture that we had no idea was happening. So I think when major sponsorship came into the gospel music industry, and you can see a distinct difference. It's almost like a line was drawn when suddenly the blue chips said, you know, we can get some money. Yeah, there's an audience here. It changes the nature of what it is. It becomes I'm not saying that it can't sell as a commercial product. What I am saying is that then when there's money to be made from a thing, it changes the nature of the spirit of the thing. So I think that was one. Number two, we were younger and we wanted to reach our generation for the gospel. That was our idea. Certainly that was my idea. That was my goal at the time. Entertainment quality of it was not the main thing. It just so happened. And here was that distinct difference for me there was a purity in it. The purity of it was those were our driving forces. But now people have seen that, you know what, nikitoa tumbo moja,
I will be famous.
Itashika.
Yes.
And if you have 900,000 followers, a million followers on your Instagram or on Facebook, or you know, Twitter, you can say to the sponsors. Hey, I have 1 million followers. Give me 200,000.
You become instantly an influencer.
This is what I mean. So
Yeah.
those are some of the components that are happening. And this is not just gospel music that's happening. You know, I now speak with people who are in the industry. My daughter actually is working in an advertising company, and she tells me, talk to musicians, and not just gospel music. Just talk to these guys, because content. It's listen. Content in terms of music. There's very few musicians who are saying, I want to produce artistry. I want to produce artistry. And so we have conditioned also our consumers. The audience is also conditioned to hear the noise. And so all you hear is noise and no beauty, no artistry, no poetry.
Yes.
There's no literary tools that we're using of cipher. It's all blatant. All completely sensual and very obviously sexual a lot of the time. So when it's appealing to the base things, you can't find creativity in that. So for me, those are some of it's complex. I don't think it's an easy answer. But again, I point back to our society. What has become of our society? You know, we're headlines. We're all for headlines. We don't go for the depth of the story. You know, it's all sensation. Who left who joined with who, you know, who's the celebrity, who's working with who, how much money, what car did they drive, you know, what new second-hand car did they get?
Did you buy?
And all that, you know, fake celebrity, and also materialism. I'm not just talking about the money side of it, where you have a perfectly good phone, but you need the new one. You know, that's materialism. From a philosophical perspective. Materialism, where things that we can touch and hold and see, this becomes the driving force. So for me, I think there's a much deeper thing, and you know, when people like us try and bring deep music, they say, "We una kizungu mingi." But the reality is, we don't want to be deep. Our you know, listeners don't want to be deep. You know, the audience don't want to be deep. They want to escape. Quite frankly, I mean, when in the history of Kenya was fuel 135 shillings per litre? It's never been. We've never been here before. We've never been. Life is so expensive now, more expensive, and it's hard, and it's cheap. I saw a video the other day online, you know, a friend of mine, Amin Virani, was saying, this is what happened on this expressway not too far from where we are.
Okay.
A guy comes and steals the mabati, and he's walking. I said, but for what? You know, it's life that he's crossing a highway where cars are going at 80, 100 kilometers an hour. He's risking his life. And then it's theft. So he's risking his life and a jail term. For what? A few hundred shillings? How cheap is life, Charles? And this is the thing, that people, when life becomes this cheap, people look for escape. So the escape, and this is not something that started yesterday. The last few years, and this is not just a political problem. This is a social economic problem. We have deep-seated problems. And so I don't blame the person who says, "Mazee usinipe, yo mziki deep, don't give me deep music.
I just want to
yo kizungu mingi na makods mingi sitaki. I just want to escape dunda. That's what I want."
That's what you want.
I don't blame somebody for doing that. What is he going to do? Go and sit on the hillside? Which hillside? Everywhere there's concrete.
There's a concrete jungle.
Yeah, when they call it what? Jasimiti.
Jasimiti.
So the entire city is just cement and stone. Where can you sit and contemplate?
There's nowhere to contemplate.
So this thing goes deep down to our education. It's an educational problem. Goes down to deeper things. And so then again, I'm saying I'm a little slow to blame the person jumping on the cow or running on the trees, or you know, being
or swimming in mud,
or the controversies that come as a result of this. It's telling us that there's a fissure there's a fracture in our society, a great rift valley. It's like a rift valley. That's just, the pressure's been building. Now the fractures happened, and everything's falling apart.
So, and what is this? What would church do? What is the state of the church in all this? How do we reconcile.
Yeah.
Because you see, initially the church was the voice of the society.
Right.
Now, the
Some
church
sanity.
is sanity in it. Now, it is all muddled up.
Yeah.
You can't say exactly where the church stands.
Yeah.
Or what they want to champion, because the most emerging churches are preaching prosperity anyway. And when anyone in the poverty we are in, if someone preaches prosperity and easy way to make money from, everyone joins.
Charles, what you asked is, this is like a documentary, a 3-hour documentary in the history of what has happened.
Yes.
I grew up around the teachings. I was baptized by the Reverend Mutava Musimi.
Yes.
Who in the 1980s was vilified, hounded, harangued by the government of the day. Arrested a couple of times. This was my champion. You know, he stood for something.
Yes,
he believed in something.
He believed in something. Yeah.
Bishop Okulu, whose granddaughter started to attend our church. Alexander Muge, Reverend Timothy Njoya. These were people who you knew what they stood for. You knew what they stood for. They believed in something. There was some essence to who they were. There was a clear-cut understanding of this is right and this is wrong. Now, you know, in terms of what they agreed on, in terms of their denominationally, that differed. But there were things that the university agreed on.
Yes.
I think over time what has happened is a brand of Christianity that came that ignored the social aspect of who we were, ignored even the spiritual aspect and mysticism, which was rich in what the Catholic Church was, and some aspects of the Evangelical Church were rich in mysticism.
Yes.
Mysticism now, you know, what are you talking about?
What are you doing?
You know, there's no there's a book I read years ago by Richard Foster called The Celebration of Discipline. And in that book he talks about the disciplines of fasting, the disciplines of silence, the disciplines of worship, the disciplines of study. You know, when you go to our pulpits now, those are not, they're not hot topics. You know, you can't go, you know, they won't call you back for the conference when you go and say, I believe in the power of Bible study. You know, they'll say, no, Bana, I need a new car, bro. And these are realities. I'm not saying that those are not realities. Only Kenya Bureau of Statistics 2017, the last time I checked, saying only close to 5% of our population earns over 100,000 shillings.
Yes.
So it was about 97% of our country's population earns
100.
less 100,000.
Yes, less than 100. Yes.
Okay, so poverty is a reality.
It is.
And so one of the things that the church, especially I call the evangelical church, refused to address was poverty.
Yes.
And if you don't deal with poverty, then you have the kind of social distress that we have. So I think that that's something that needed to be talked about. So where is the church today? And it wasn't just poverty. The evangelical church was very strong on politics, on right governance and constitutionalism, propriety and so on, which was great because that's, you know, it's almost biblical. You say, this is the Bible, these are our rules. We live by this book.
Yes.
When you throw that out, you have nothing. And so this is part of the problem that I'm not sure that, I think the church is still trying to find herself. Where is she? What does she believe in? And because the whole world is in flux, the internet is not that old. You know, 1990 is only 30 odd years away.
Yes.
You know, so, but the internet is the equivalent of the printing press 500 years ago. And the printing press had a colossal effect on how the church then became. And the printing press as a means of communication impacted and actually fanned into flame the Protestant movement. So here we are. We have the elements of the same thing. You know, a compromised priesthood, a laity that is frustrated out of poverty, and semi-aristocracy because, you know, there's the there's the we and them, the haves and the have-nots. And this was what was happening in 500 years ago. So we're actually sitting on a time bomb of spiritual and social revolution that is going to be, that is already being fanned into flame by the ubiquity of the internet. So these are things that we're seeing. To me, these are the things that we're seeing that to me, and if the church doesn't pay attention to the poverty, if it doesn't pay attention to the social distress and social issues that's happening, if the church does not get involved in dealing decisively with generational poverty, then we will have a repeat of the kind of revolutionary ideas that we had in the 17th century in France. So I think, to me, just the ability to see better, visionary leadership is needed, because our bishops and some of the old leaders, you know, we just lost David Yongicho, pastor of the largest church for the longest time in the world. We had Billy Graham go a few years ago, Maurice Cerullo, and our guys here are old. I mean, we want to be, some of the guys, I grew up, you know, going to their crusades are in their 70s and 80s now. Who is the voice that we're going to listen to? Who are the Bishop Okulus and Alexander Muges and
David Gitaris?
Who are they of the time, of today? It's difficult to identify them because, in my view, I have a secret. In my view, they're like David of the Bible. They're out in the wilderness. They're being made in the wilderness. They're fighting lions and bears and not living a soft life of having everything handed to them and playing the games that many of our preachers today are doing. Having said that, there remains a remnant. I have a pastor friend whose church is in Kawangware, who I visit, we support. And there's pastors, there's another pastor we support. She's planting a church somewhere deep in Magadi. There's people who are serious about this thing, who have no money to make from this thing, but they're decidedly rescuing girls off of the streets. They're going to places where nobody wants to go. Not because of money, but because of truth, because of the love of people. There's people like that. We just don't see them. They're not
on the screens.
No, they don't dress like me nicely.
They don't have 310.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't have the privilege of having a church member who's a tailor who makes good suits for you and says, I won't charge you market price.
I'll give you at a lower price.
I'll give you at a lower price. And he does it happily, Vazilangu. So to me, they don't have those kind of privileges. But we support them. We pray for them. When they invite us, we go to those places. Don't just see me. Suti isikudanganye mzee. Isikudanganye.
Suti ya Vazilangu.
Isikudanganye. We go to the ghettos and the places. We take off our
You don't take your expensive shoes?
No. We go to Lada and those things. We go and we preach there. And listen, you know, people look at me and say, hey, your English is so nice, whatever.
Nairobi.
No, listen, I went to school in Kisii, in the pit latrine. I went to school in Kakamega. And so I'm not a town boy. I mean, we grew up here, but pia, nimegrow hizo maside. Yeah, I went to school. And I spent more time there than I spent here. So Nairobi, and then we were in middle class, and because of where my father was and so on. And you know our story, my story has been here. The last 30 years I've done this in public. We want wealthy. So
the Oderas were not poor as
No. This is what people think.
The Oderas.
Odera, my father, did not make money like some of his friends who made money from the government contracts and being in that space. My father was in the opposition. Please remember, Ford Kenya was done outside our house, in the backyard of our house.
And your cousin Liki Odera.
Yes. These were people, you didn't make money from being in the opposition. So we were not wealthy. How many times was I sent home for school fees? So this is the reality. This is the reality. The people think that, oh, jama, stima ilikatwa, sijui maji mekatwa, nini. We grew up with that. That's what you're in Woodley. Woodley was a city council. You paid city council houses, pay city council rates. These were not expensive houses to live in. All you needed was to sign against and you're done. So for me, I think I was just fortunate. I was fortunate to be in that space, and my father knew, my late father knew and understood the value of a good education. So to me, I think the fallacy is that I didn't choose it anyway. I didn't choose that life.
You didn't choose where you
where was I going to be born?
Yeah,
Kuna mtu anachoose mahali atazaliwa.
Hakuna, you didn't. But back to Brook Church. Your church is Waterbrook Church.
Waterbrook Ministry.
Waterbrook Ministry. You've been there for almost 10 years. Your brother Gowi is still there?
More than that.
More than that. So is it fully affiliated in Kenya, or?
We're an independent church. I love to tell this story because it's a story of how we stood up for this thing. I decided to register the Waterbrook Ministry in Kenya. Register it here. And we went and put in our registration. And they gave us a hard time. And it took us over 2 years because somebody somewhere wanted something. And somebody came and told me, you know, if you see my boss, things will be sorted out. I said, go and tell your boss, CG. CG. And this is what the boss said to this person. He said, go and tell your pastor. Wengine wamekuja, atakuja tu. I said, nenda umwambie, mimi si mapasta wengine. And so we waited. Eventually, the right way, the thing came to us. So we got registered, we were fully affiliated. When the former Attorney General said all churches are deregistered, come and register again, I happily went and lined up with Makorino Hapa, Hapa from Marubaga, wherever they were coming from. We did it happily, deciding to stay on the right side of the law. So to me, we're an independent ministry, fully registered in Kenya, and loving Jesus, preaching the truth of Jesus Christ. We're not a wealthy church at all. Not by any stretch of the imagination. My brother is a pastor at Nairobi Chapel, which is different.
It's different, you know.
A different organization. I love him to bits. We talked this morning. I love him to bits. And we look up to each other. We do this intellectual jousting.
Every time, eh?
Yeah. So that's who we are. We meet online at the Waterbrook Ministry. You can find us. I have all these wonderful sermons that I've been doing for over a year now online. Until it is 100% safe again, we're going to do whatever hybrid of what God allows us to do.
Now, let's go back to music. New music, Smile.
I Smile.
I Smile.
Very happy about it.
How is it doing?
It's doing okay.
Yes. And what is the difference between that and my favorite, Tuebon?
Okay, so, wow.
Tuebon.
Tuebon is...
Tuebon.
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
Close to 30 years since the recording. I wrote that song when I was in Form 5 or Form 6, I think. But I released it in 1990, end of 95, 96. 96, in 1996. And the rest is history. What I wanted with Tuebon was Sukus was a growing sound
yes,
at the
from
time.
Central Africa, yes.
Yeah, and I said Sukus is Benga, which was Ohangla, which changed into Benga, which is now coming back to us with modern sound. I said, let me have a Sukus thing that catches the attention. A praise song, louange, that speaks to praising God in Swahili and in French, which gives it a universality over the 22 French-speaking countries in Africa, and in Swahili, which is understood in East Africa. And it did way better than I ever imagined. What an amazing song. God gave me a gift. I got tired of singing that song. At some point I said, please don't ask me to sing this song.
It again.
But then eventually I said, you know what, this is my song. People are calling me Tuebon. So Tuebon was that. But here was I Smile. Just about 25 years ago, when we were in Heart, we were looking for a break. We needed a studio to record, or a producer to push our music forward. We were really looking for the right kind of producer. Ted said, there's a studio somewhere here on Riara Road, and that's where Guido Kibukosia and Suzanne Gashukia are recording. Their band is musically speaking, and we should go there. And you know, we were kind of hesitant because we were afraid. And then one day we ended up at Joy Mboya's office, and she said, I'll talk to Suzanne about you. And so we heard, they said, okay, I think exchanged a phone call or two. Let's come to the studio. We got to the studio, which was Samawati Studios at the time, and here was Guido. And they had heard about us. Guido had heard about us, and we walked into the studio. And we started recording, and I think that's another chapter that has a long history. But after we'd done a couple of projects, what ended up happening was Suzanne at the same time was writing songs. And some of the songs were gospel songs. So she wrote the song and recorded it in one of her albums. She wrote the original version of I Smile, recorded in one of her albums. She didn't like it, did something else, gave it to, I think it was Jonah Uzele. He did a good job, but she said, I'd like you to try it. It's your kind of a song. And I said, okay. I took it. I said, okay, I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to rework it. And this is what we emerged with. So I rewrote it. I did a couple of demos. And then we got Paul Kibukosia, Ulopa
Ngoma, yeah.
To do the production.
Peter. Yeah.
Paul,
is it Peter Paul?
It's Paul. And then we got Victor Kimeto to come in and play organ and keys on it. I got Eddie Gray to come and play guitar on it. And then eventually Emma Nyabera, I mean, I've sang with her for so long. Her sound is almost like my sound now. And so she did the background vocals. Then now on the video and the song that you hear, my kids are on it. And so it evolved. So what I was doing with I Smile is, we've been through a really hard time. We've been through a really hard time in the middle of COVID, and this song was recorded. And we said, let's release it, because there's a need for people to have hope, to smile. And weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning, which is the psalm that we quote at the end of the thing, and we release it, and people loved it. It's not trap.
It's not trap.
It's not trap. It's not gengeton. It's good old R&B and gospel mashed together. And it's done something that I think that the world needed. The world needed to smile, and I feel it's very different from the sound that is now what I call Kenyan pop. So it's not a Kenyan pop song, even though it's a song that's from Kenya, in that space. So I'm encouraging people to go out and listen to it, and because I think everybody who listens to it, I've had producers from overseas listen and said, I like it, I love it. And anybody who listens to it, watches the video, says, wow, it leaves me smiling. So I think that feel-good thing needed to be there.
You need to be there.
We've had a hard time, Charles. It's
a hard 1 year, 1.5 years of nasty,
almost 2 years now.
People dying. But how is the difference between, when you started singing as Heart with Sally and Ted and, of course, Esther Mwindi, Miyangima was a bit different sound? It
was different sound.
Yes. And then you did the second album?
Which is Ecstatic.
Which was a
different sound.
Different sound, and it was huge. That one landed you up.
Heavenly Party, we got signed.
So that was the third album?
That was album 2.
Album 2.
Actually
Heavenly Party and Ecstatic.
Heavenly Party and Ecstatic. We were working on a third when
the big split.
Chinua
Things fall apart. Is it, by the way, that falling apart, was it the youth, or was it... Because you guys were getting along very well.
We were very good friends.
Very good friends.
Still are.
Ted used to live in a house. Sally used to be in Kileleshwa singing, playing her guitar.
I think here was the thing. I need you to understand we were in our mid-20s. Imagine, 25, 26. By the time we were breaking up, I think I was 27. So I wasn't even 30 by the time we did 2 albums worth. We were together for maybe less than 3 years. But I think God really had his hand upon us to really influence our generation and to give us some songs which lasted until now, just long-lasting songs. We had Sally was an amazing songwriter. She was a better songwriter than I am. I'll tell you that for free. No, hands down. And then we had such an incredible producer who understood pop. It was Ted Josiah, who was a better producer than I was. Too busy. I'm such a perfectionist, you know.
Yes,
and I'm
you
such a
always
perfectionist.
want your stuff.
I want my stuff. I mean, a song that would take Ted a day to do, it would take me a week to put together.
Yes.
Not because I'm any less skilled, but because I just want things a certain way.
Yes, yes.
And in fact, my manager tells me, Guy, please. In fact, by the time I Smile was coming out, he was just saying, please release this song already. Come on. So I'm having to learn to let go now. But our split came because Ted saw himself as a Quincy Jones in
the music industry, yes.
Which he became.
Yes.
Sally wanted to do Afro-pop without necessarily having so much of a gospel overtone. Yes. There was something that she wanted to speak to. The thing that Angelique Kidjo
does,
and the thing that even now Yemi Alade is doing, that's who Sally was sort of echoing, trying to become before any of these women became. Yeah. And then Esther was really committed to doing ministry with her husband. When she got married, she was committed to doing ministry with her husband. So the reality was those are opposing forces, not bad forces, just going in different directions. And the pressure, and I'll tell you that the pressure that was on us from the ostracization from church, the lack of financial benefit or income from what we were doing, that pressure, these were young women with lives to live, wanted a family and kids. Yes. You know, you want to be hated for the rest of your life. We were hated. We were hated. You know, you're hated. So, can you imagine people call you devil worship? We are hated, literally hated. People who don't even know you hate you.
So how did the news break to you? Like, don't come to our church. Who was there? Who told you?
On which occasion? The first, the second, third, fourth, fifth. Listen, this wasn't just one church. Yes. This was a series of churches. Yes. So sometimes it was blatant. Usikuja hapa, tokeni hapa na hizo mabraids zenu. And they had other things that they added to that were I cannot repeat on television. Yes. So the reality is sometimes it was blatant. Yes. Sometimes it was less obvious. Yes. You had people who'd come to you and say, you know, your dressing is a bit off. It's a bit off. Yeah. So we can't let you see. What do you mean you're dressing? What do you want us to wear? These are our clothes. You know, what do you want us to
baggy pants.
It was, and I mean, if you put up a picture, I hope that you will put up a picture of how we look. Can you imagine Heart the band now, Sauti Sol, how they look now? Yes. Take that back
in this
30 years, 25 years ago. Yeah. Take that back. Yeah. You can you know, when people were wearing black and white suits and robes, it wasn't going to fly.
It looked going to fly.
We were ahead of our time. We were ahead of our time. Far. We're ahead of our time. And so I don't regret it, by the way. I'm happy. It made me who I am. I took the punches for Willie Paul. We made it easy. We made it easy. And we made it look easy. It was tough. I remember there was a particular night I'm remembering. It was raining. The roof was leaking. It was raining. And it was raining now, the rain that comes like this. Yes. And so that rain, you know that rain that comes like this? Yes. And Ted was crying silently in bed. I could hear because the bed is shaking and he's crying. Yes. And it was cold and the mattress, and we had had soup. And he had been rejected. The reality is that's where we were. You know, there were rats around.
Rats are everywhere.
It was a journey. So what I'm trying to say is that having been there, it made me who I am. It developed character. It made me trust God more. It made me understand people. You know, it built our relationship. And regardless of where Ted is, he's my brother. Regardless of where Esther is, that's my sister. You know, we've been through some things, man. And when you go through some of those things, scar you for life. You know, it's like a tattoo and saying, you know, I wear the same tattoo to Kopa Moja.
It's a mark.
Yeah, it's a mark that you have for life. Yeah. So to me, I think we were about to do a European tour, and that didn't pan out. It's partly my fault, but that didn't pan out. Yes. I made a decision. Because at some point as a leader, you have to make a decision. I said, you know what? We can't go on tour with this kind of fracture.
Yeah.
This kind of fractured thing, and I don't even know where that wisdom even came from. You know, the reality is there was an inevitable thing. And can you imagine having this kind of pressure here and then having to go and find that pressure in the UK, and in the US? That was going to be...
That's catastrophic.
Yeah. I think we were ahead of our time.
Yeah.
But we were prescient in the sense that we were saying this is what music will become. This is what youth culture will become. Color is going to come to the church. Fashion is going to come into the church. And these are things that God enjoys. He enjoys color.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd all be this monolithic, we'd all look the same, all
without,
sing the same.
Yeah.
You know, our languages would be the same.
It would be different.
So to me, Charles, I think it was a great, I had a great time. I had a great young life. We may not have made money, but we made history. My legacy, no one can take that away from us. Yeah. We founded the first gospel, crossover gospel group that did something in the pop space. We founded Kisima Awards. 26 years later, is still there. We made statements that, to me, I say, I didn't even know I was making. So I think some of that was not me, Charles. Some of that was God speaking through me ahead of time. I'm not that clever. I'm not that clever. I'm not that strategic.
Yes.
God used people who are without capacity and whose the support that we got was minimal. That's how I know that it was all God. It was all God, and to me, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. I think it's Mandugu Digital. What's his name? Ambi, who says, Maze, Yani, no wonder you retired early. I like to tell people, you know, one day I was going to, I was trying to go to Switzerland. I was trying to get a Schengen visa.
Yes.
And they say, what do you do? I said, I'm retired. I said, a young man, like, how can you retire?
Yes.
Don't tell us lies.
Yes.
You know, the reality is I had achieved so much. I remember meeting when I was introduced to Prophetess Juanita Bynum, and they said, this is Peter Odera, he's done this and this. And they said, what, really? Yes. But you're too young. How can you do what James Cleveland did in 2 lifetimes? You did. God helped me to do before I was 40. I'm not that clever. I'm not that gifted.
And you influenced Eric Wainaina?
Absolutely. Eric Wainaina was a background vocalist. Started out as a background vocalist for me.
Yes.
Grammy Award nominee, I think he was.
Wahoo, of course, was there?
Absolutely. Wahoo was one of my BGVs. I worked with MCLC. We talked about... Oh,
Linda Chemotut.
Linda Chemotut.
MCLC.
Yeah.
One of the fastest rappers to emerge. Yeah.
I have a thing that I'm doing now called Tales from the Vault.
Yes.
And the new one that I'm doing is about rap community. The one that is... I try and do this every Thursday.
Rap community.
Rap community. I was there at the
Kenja Marima, Circuit was there.
Circuit.
Big Kev. Big Ted. Who was?
Kenja Marima.
Kenja Marima. This someone else was
Jimmy
in that group.
Okungu.
Jimmy Okungu.
There was Brian Liambili.
Yes.
I think there were 6 or 7 of them, and MCLC.
And MCLC. Yeah, that's.
So this was the main unit. There were others who were around.
There were many people who were hanging around them.
But this was the main unit. And nobody wanted to touch rap community. Nobody. Yes. No secular. These are the real OGs, by the way.
Yes.
You know, we talk about these OGs who we watched.
Yes. Recently.
Yeah, recently.
Yes.
No disrespect. No disrespect to the guys who are being called OGs in the rap. But rap community was before that.
Yes, I remember.
They were before that. These were trailblazers. They set the ground for Otile, for all these guys who are there now. These were trailblazers, and they were doing. Nobody wanted no churches, no secular, nothing. Nobody wanted to touch them.
Yes,
except
no one.
Pete Odera. And I said, I'll do your tracks. I'll be your producer. I'll work with you. In fact, come and be the opening act. And we put together a show where they'd come and they'd be the opening act. Then Aizo would follow.
Gatembo.
Then Aizo, and then you had Judy.
Judy went to the States?
Yes, she lives in America.
Yeah.
We still talk. Yeah. And then Wahoo. And then Tuyabong would come and close the show. So we had 4 or 5 acts, the G-Way Records thing, and it was fantastic. It was ahead of its time. We didn't make money.
But the sound still lives.
But the idea behind it. And I really struggled. I really struggled with some of the advertising agencies to persuade them of where we now are
today
with gospel music, that it's a thing that's $1 million industry. They couldn't see it. They couldn't see it. There's trouble with being a visionary.
But after rap community, there was a gap in between, remember?
Yeah.
Because I think...
but the bug had caught.
Yeah,
the bug had caught.
Yeah.
You know, the bug had caught. And when that came, this was laying the foundation, because on top of that, these guys who came to singing competition, Star Search, with us, was Five Alive.
Yeah.
So they won the Star Search, and there you are. So you now have Five Alive.
Yeah, Victor Sei and Crew,
who were Kyoko. The Boys to Men of Kenya, arguably the Boys to Men of Kenya.
They were good, extremely
so
good.
So to me, I think we did good. We did good. We set not just for gospel music, but for music in general. I think we were. I think about it. Even Five Alive didn't have a music video. We had a music video that was playing on Jamadelic right after R. Kelly, and so between R. Kelly and whoever, Joe Desi, that was playing at the time, Here Comes Show You Love.
Yes.
I think it was unique. You know, now we take music videos
very
for
easily.
granted.
Yes.
It was a huge deal.
It's a huge deal to get a music video out.
So.
And then I wanted to get back a bit to your personal story.
Sure.
You met your wife.
I did.
Got married.
I did.
How is that relationship now? 25 years or 24?
Miraculously, almost 24 years.
And remember before you had left someone or someone left you in between?
My story is on Engage. If somebody wants to get it, you'll find it there.
Yeah?
I think miraculously we are together because of the pressure on me and on us. This lady is so gracious. She's an amazing woman. Likes to remain behind the scenes.
Fantastic.
Doesn't like to be a public person. And you know, she's not like, you know, like now Wahoo and Nameless, who
in the public space,
in the public sphere. And I love. I mean, these are guys who I completely love.
Yeah.
You know, attended my church and so on. I love them.
Yeah.
But that wasn't us. We're not a celebrity couple. She's a professional person. She's a manager in her field. She does the best that she can. She's been one of the pioneers in the co-working and serviced offices space. She's revered, and she's such an incredible, gracious person in that field. And you know, in the same way that a doctor doesn't take his wife to the
clinic.
Work, I just say, you know, let's tuheshimiane. You do your thing, because you don't bring me to your office.
Yes.
Let me bring you to mine. And so that's worked for us. I think it's the rhythm that we've gotten over time. She's a very private person, and extremely brilliant, clever, and she's a great follower. You know, has her own, so she's very strong in her opinions, and so we've had disagreements. That's
what makes a family.
Yeah, we have had disagreements.
Yeah.
So you know this picture that guys have, hi love, hi, have some chocolate, have some, that picture, that's not us.
Yeah?
You see it.
No. Life is real.
That's not our love language. That's certainly not hers. Understanding who she is, she understanding who she is, me understanding who I am, and then presenting who I am to her and expecting her to understand, and vice versa. I think this is what makes a real marriage. A real marriage is not, and even the celebrity ones will tell you, hey, maze, hii barabara.
Ni ngumu.
Yeah. It's two completely different personalities coming together and trying to make that work. You need to work on it. 24, 25 years later, I'm still saying.
You're still working on it.
Working on it. There's still things that I say, "Ay, really,
really,
really," you know.
Yeah.
So there's challenges. There's challenges, not least economic. Now it's easier with adult children. You can share with them some of the challenges. The girls were really small. They didn't know that they were growing up into this thing, but here they are. They're now trying to be artistic in their own way, trying to, I mean, I find it really funny that I say, can I produce a song for you? They say, no.
Why? The sound.
They say, because they want to define themselves.
Themselves, of course.
And I like that. I say,
they
okay, go ahead. Tutapatana huko mbele. You know, just remember, I can do this thing. You know, so they come back and I listen to what they've done. It's amazing. It's amazing. So to me, I think eventually they're finding themselves. You know, as a young adult, I want them to discover, uncover, come into their own. So we're a family that's changing, transitioning, trying to be global, trying to be local, trying to be Joluo, trying to be Kanairo guys who don't live in Nairobi. And kind of this, you know, it's so many transitions, so many transitions. My mom is now in her 80s, and so...
Somewhere back in Yimbo?
Well, Mom is still in Nairobi trying to go to Yimbo, but I'm finding that I'm attracted to Yimbo.
You're attracted to Yimbo more?
I'm attracted to Yimbo.
Yes.
Something that, you know how when you're younger, oh, Shags, no. This is Adwadidala.
Yes. And you find yourself doing more things there?
And I find that when I go there, I'm at peace, I'm happy.
Yes.
I say, I can eat fish every single day and not be tired.
I think you never used to...
You know, imagine. And so to me, I think I'm... was a Rababa. Yes, I suppose maybe that if that's what being a Baba is, then that's me. I'm finding out more about my roots, about our history. Dad, before he died, walked me back 250 years.
Ah.
I've written down our history, our family tree, 250 years.
All that one takes you back to Kemet, Lower Kemet, or up to where?
No, it at least takes us to Uganda, into Kenya, to Kabaka, and the big clash between our clan and the Kabaka's clan and what led us to being in Kenya.
Yes.
It's a fantastic story.
Yeah, because actually the whole of the Ugandan kingdoms, the whole of Ugandan kingdoms are Luo kingdoms. Even the Baganda is a Luo kingdom. That's why it comes from Oganda. That's the pronounce.
This is now Ajalua you speaking.
No. It's factual.
We got you.
Factual.
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
Rather than trying, so for me, I think for me, I wasn't trying to, let's just say I wasn't trying to flex my Luo-ness.
Yes.
I was really trying to find out, where am I from?
Yeah.
Who is my grandfather? Who's my great-grandfather?
Yeah.
Why are we here? Why do we have names that are so different? Why is Aluga, what kind of name is that? Because it's such a unique name in Luo land. You don't have those kind of names. Odera is common, but now our other names, I said, but these don't sound like Luo names.
Yes.
Tell me about this thing. So I told my dad and he took me back.
Yeah.
Took me back, and this was amazing. And so I started, you know, doing my own research about it, and it's been a fascinating journey.
It's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so to me, I think that understanding Banyoro Kitara, understanding Buganda, understanding Nubia, understanding Sudan, understanding all the way to Kemet,
Lower Kemet,
and all that made us who we are.
Yeah.
Has helped me understand a little bit better why do I resonate with the things that I resonate with. So my histories I'm understanding more. Let me say I'm understanding more why I ended up here.
So being the father of girls, you know, girls are very challenging to raise. Oh,
really?
Yeah. Boys are much easier. We'll carry your drum set when you're going to a concert.
Oh, no, my girls will carry.
Yeah?
Oh, no. There's no sexism here. They will do that thing. But sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I'm just asking. So how do you feel that some of them, of course, Kyla picked the music bag has actually beaten her, and she's producing, doing good music. Would you encourage her fully to get into music career? Absolutely.
I'm trying to do for my kids what my dad did.
Yeah.
I want to be an enabler. I don't want to force them into it. And my mentor, Jack Odombo, told me something. He said, you know, at the beginning, his boys weren't interested at all.
Yeah.
They're all super musicians now. One day, something just happened and it clicked, and they
went into music.
This is exactly what's happened with Michaela, and the expression that the older one, Ariel, is finding. I mean, there are days I just come home and I'd say, this girl is singing every day, shut the door, please. I mean, stop. And she'd be there with Mariah Carey and with Whitney Houston or whatever. Just say, oh, is this how I used to irritate people? Is this how I used to irritate people?
Yes.
And then I can see the path.
Yes.
I can see the path.
Yeah.
So I want to support it. Like I said, she's a student at Daystar University at the same time working at an advertising company. And she's doing that at the same time. She's a professional and a student at the same time. And then there's very little time for music and her other interests. But I know for a fact that these girls will end up there. This is the thing. But destiny. Michaela has a thing also to be in theater. She's acted in a couple of movies already. I know that their destiny is in that field. I'll be here to support it 100%. Whatever I can to do, and I'll be coming back to you to ask for your support for them, because these are world citizens. These are global citizens.
They're global citizens now, of course, with the social media and the internet penetration, exposure, friendship, and the click of the button. So it's much easier than when you were growing up. Totally different. But also what I wanted to know is that if you look at your musical journey, from Miangima Arts as Heart to now, is our music industry on the right path? Remember, these Gengeton guys have actually knocked off Nigeria music out of Kenya. They've knocked Diamond out of Kenya and the Wasafi crew. Yet their production skills, they are not very good. The music is not well produced. It is mass market. It is not. It is what it is. There's no proper chords. There's no proper lyricism. But people are dancing. People are playing. The wordplay might not be there, but So what would you say? So is a great takeout?
Okay, so let me talk about Gengeton, then I can pull back and talk about the music industry.
Yes.
I know this will sound crazy.
Yes.
I know I won't even sound like a pastor.
Yes.
But I love that Gengeton is emerging.
Yes.
I love that it's emerging. It's young. This is a young thing. This is an expression. This is something that's coming out of the space that we're in. Again, it's a product of who we are. It's not yet. It's in its infancy. It's in its infancy. So you're absolutely right. It's in its infancy.
Yes.
I'd like to see 5-10 years from now what Gengeton will become. And I don't know, we'll see. But let me pull back and say something that's important with the music. We had started in the early 2000s, the music industry had started to go in the right direction. And we kind of lost our bearing somewhere. You know, and we got lost definitely in the place where the CMOs are. The CMOs have suffered the problem that is ubiquitous in Kenya, which is corruption, nepotism, whatever it is. So this is a disease we have to get over at some point. But then from an art perspective as well, art somewhere, this is a whole story about art. Art sort of lost where are we supposed to be. So we're still trying to find our way. I have a friend is called Paul Ondeng, younger brother of the more famous Pete Ondeng. Paul said something to me one day that stuck with me. He said, Kenya is like this vehicle that we were on the road and we now got onto the highway and we started to go and started to pick up speed. And then to Kateleza, Mahali, we went off the road. Now we are somewhere stuck in the ditch, somewhere in the mud, and the car is now doing like this. It's in the mud like this. It needs people to push it to bring it back on the road. That's what I think is happening with the music. You can see its potential. You can see what it can become artistically. You can see what it can become culturally. You can see what it can become even economically. But the road is there. So we need the kind of visionary leadership that will push this vehicle to where it's supposed to be, and people with the capacity and empowerment to make it so. Certainly. After Moi, we had President Kibaki, who created an enabling environment, which I think really helped. And if you remember, this was the emergence of Nameless and Ogopa DJs and Mandugu Digital, and because there was a platform, there was now space where people can breathe artistically. And I think that that attention needs to be paid to that thing. So I think, in short, that's a seminar, it's a workshop, a weekend workshop.
It's long.
It's a book all on its own that needs to be written. I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful because these young people are still creating. I'm still writing songs. So as long as we have creative people who are writing songs, the music industry is there. And then now we have the internet. So whereas people were waiting to express their art only on the platforms that were given to them, somebody can become a mega star in their bedroom, and you don't know about them because they're selling to Japan or Australia because they have a global audience suddenly. So to me, I think it's possible to go. We're at the nascent. Again, I said it's a revolutionary space that we're in. On all spheres, the transitions that we're going through economically, socially, culturally, all those, even spiritually, we are at the precipice of something that's pushing us into this space that's going to explode into something. Now, if we're good custodians, it will be beautiful.
And you're good custodians. I hope. What does your book cover? The Curve.
I wrote a book, and it's actually talking about this. So The Curve is a book I started to write in, I think, 2013, 2014. It came out 2014. 2014,
yeah.
So The Curve is a book that talks about transformation.
Yeah.
It's really a thing, and I think it's relevant now so much because we see the pressure for change and transformation. It's a book about change and transformation. And I tell stories about things in that book that help us to understand change, from the area of politics to music, to pop culture, and many other things. So I feel as a mentor, as an author in the space of transformational leadership, that this is what we need to do. We need to raise deliberately custodians. The next generation is upon us. I would say to the bishop, the pastor, the musician, aficionado, parent, rather than castigate the young Gengeton artists, why not bring them into your fold?
Into the
why
church,
not bring them into your space? Why not encourage them? Why not support them? Why do they have to go through? I say, why does Willie Paul and that generation that's behind me, maybe twice, have to go through the same challenges that we went through, of rejection, of no monetary compensation? Why do we have to go through why are we repeating this? This is the same promises that were being made at independence. You know, education, we're going to rid ourselves of ignorance, diseases, water, whatever. We're still making those promises. You know,
in the 2030 vision, 2030, which is,
to me,
8 years from now.
To me, we need to be deliberate about this next generation. And I like, my wife was talking to me this morning about the founder of ALU, African Leadership University. And I was so impressed. If we're not deliberate about bringing the next generation, if we don't cultivate the trees, we'll have to deal with the brambles and the thorns that grow in our path. If we don't deliberately cultivate a garden, we're going to deal with kuda. In our language, you call it kuda. Thorns and thistles that grow up, we're going to have to deal with that.
So are you, with that book and your view, which is very deep, are you thinking, your father was a political animal, will you get into that space?
Yeah, he was.
Or will you get into that space?
I'm constantly in politics. I just would much rather play. I care too much. You know, you have to have the kind of heart for a politician. Has to be the kind of person who cares but has a stone heart. You know, a heart that I feel pain. I can't say some of the things our politicians say. I can't.
You lie blatantly?
Yeah, our political atmosphere is, I'm sorry to say, is not in a place of maturity where ideas can now come to the fore. I'm a man of ideas, Charles. I'm not a personality-driven person. This was who my dad was, and he taught us that way. I like personalities, but Bruh, I mean, if your idea doesn't hold water, I'll tell you. I'll tell you, boss.
Yeah,
you know, it's time. And I think the petri dish that grew our current political stock, I mean, some of these guys were there. I mean, they're in history now, but they're still present with us. I'm not saying you're irrelevant, but isn't there a graduation into something? Into a statesman, into statesmen that can lead a new generation? Are you telling me that there are no young people who you have groomed to come into this political space? Because if we go back to independence, these were young men.
All of them, actually.
When Tom Mboya was assassinated, he was not in his 50s.
He was 39.
He was 39.
Yeah.
When Dr. Martin Luther King was shot, these were in their 30s.
38.
Bruh, I say
No.
these people were making change. Hey, where are our 30, where are the people who, because here's the thing, the older men are supposed to say, listen, here's the wisdom.
Yes,
you have the energy.
Run with it.
Run with it.
Yeah.
Run with it.
And that one is not there.
Yeah, and what we're seeing, this is not just a Kenyan problem. When I look at American politics, I say, bruh, some new ideas, Democratic Party, some new ideas, Republicans. Give us some fresh ideas. You're telling me the young people are not politically engaged? There's a reason for it. We've not given them the room to engage and bring their new ideas. We're stuck in 1964. Imagine what we're dealing with Majimbo now. It's this 1964 idea. Where should we be now? Can you imagine?
Yes.
Where should we be? This is my problem. I have no problem with, you know, I'm not an ageism guy, sorry. If you're old and you can do the thing, do it.
Yes.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal. Can you bring a new idea? What new ideas are needed? The ideas that are being hatched. China was not a world power. There was no internet when those ideas were being formulated. We now have an internet. China's a world economic power.
Number one power.
We have a population of over 50 million educated Kenyans, enlightened people who you can't just tell, I'll give you milk, and they'll ask you, what kind of milk? How is this milk going to come? People are asking, how?
How is it?
A generation now is asking why and how. The generations before said, okay, because
cool.
Una marifa.
Yes.
But this generation that's coming will not accept just platitudes. They won't.
And how do we bring this youth? 35% youth under 35 are not in churches. How do you bring them back to churches?
Well, when I looked at the statistics, I went to the East Africa Institute and I talked with the then director, Dr. Alex Awiti. I was shocked.
Yes, people are not in church.
I said, are you kidding me?
Yes.
Only 5 to 7% of Kenya's population are going to the church or the mosque.
Yes.
So this is not just a Christian issue.
Yes.
When I looked, I got a hold of the survey and I began to ask why. I think this is the problem, is that we're not answering those why questions. We're not answering why. The lack of authenticity in religious organizations. The lack of really dealing with the real issues. Real issues. Like again, I said, back to economics. How do we give economic solutions to the young people? And then the erosion of integrity in these offices. I think those are things that matter to young people. They're watching us. They're watching us. So Charles, I know I've said a lot of things, but I want to say that if we're not careful, this next generation, we're producing a monster. We're going to produce a monster that we will not be able to tame.
Thank you very much, Brother Peter Odera. You had.
Thank you, Brother Charles.
I hope we will not produce a monster.
I hope so too.
I hope so. And then we go back to our roots and educate the masses, educate the kids, the young ones.
I hope so too.
It was a pleasure to be with you.
And it was wonderful talking to you.
We had a good one.
I think we did. Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
I really appreciate it, and thank you for having me.
All right.